Waiting for people to join.
Right. All right. Good afternoon again, everyone. My name is Michaela Peck from the Office of Distance Learning. Thanks to everyone who has joined today's TurnItIn session, and also thanks to Mrs. Kamala Anderson for joining me. She is the Instructional Design Specialist within the Office of Distance Learning. Now, in today's session, we are going to be looking at Turnitin. All right, and I know that most of us, if not all, are already familiar with the software. Possibly, if you haven't used it from a lecturer's perspective for marking or assessing your students' work, you'd probably use it as a student at some point, or if you have not had rather any experience using it, you would have heard about it and know what the capabilities are. If not, don't worry, that's why we are here today. All right. Now, what is Turnitin? So Turnitin is a web-based similarity detection tool, and it is used to compare students' work with what exists in Turnitin's database. And this is really in an effort to detect similarity. And of course, what this does is that it promotes academic integrity, but the system also has additional features that are used to streamline grading, feedback, and just for overall improving student outcomes. But before we begin looking at how to set up Turnitin, so I mentioned it's web-based. Yes, it is. A software is not required for you to download to your computer for you to use it. There are two ways I know that you can access it. Currently, Moodle has an integration of Turnitin, and as we have had this for quite some time now, and just as how you can add any activity or resource to your course, it's pretty much the same method observed for adding Turnitin to your course, and we'll go through that step by step shortly. But before we do that, I want us to look at what the student handbook says about plagiarism. So I'm going to start sharing my entire screen, and in a couple of seconds you should be able to see that. Okay. All right, so under the section that speaks to offenses committed outside of an exam, it says here, and I hope if it's too fine, you can always zoom in. You can use the plus button on your screen just to zoom into view, but I'll still read a section of it. It says, it gives a definition for plagiarism here, and it says presents any material, whether in written, oral, or electronic form, that is attributable to or the property of another person as one's own work without acknowledging the source from which material is taken. Merely changing the words in someone else's work still constitutes plagiarism. This includes in whole or in part, but is not limited to, articles, essays, journals, diagrams, graphs, tables, computer software, and the list goes on. All right, and it also speaks to some ways that plagiarism can be avoided, and I find this very useful for everybody. It's a student's handbook, but I find the information presented very useful for us to have an idea of all the things considered as plagiarism and ways in which it can be avoided. There's also a document on the university's testing and assessment policy. Here it says revised. Testing and assessment policy was revised in 2013. And this document can be accessed from the Office of Quality Assurance and I think the Office of Teaching and Learning. So I'm just going to scroll down. What it speaks to with regards to plagiarism is the reference I just made in the handbook. So here it's saying that under the section in the handbook, you can find all of that information as it relates to plagiarism. And additionally, it speaks to as well what constitutes plagiarism specific to the University of Technology, Jamaica. And if I scroll down in section 10.13, it says lecturers may tolerate a maximum of 20% of non-referenced or unacknowledged material in a student's written work. A piece of written work formed with more than 20% of non-referenced or unacknowledged material should be dealt with in accordance with the provisions of Regulation 5. All right, and then 10.1.2, before I get to that, we don't want to tell students that a percentage of 20% or less is acceptable. We want to impress upon them the fact that plagiarism is wrong and that this is something they can be penalized for. All right. The point above it, 10.1.2, it highlights the use of the software that will be demonstrated in today's session. TurnItIn, it says such checks may be done through the use of application software such as TurnItIn. All right. So TurnItIn, as I mentioned earlier, detects similarity, not necessarily plagiarism. So I'm not saying that TurnItIn cannot detect plagiarism with code. However, while it is a software that is being marketed as a plagiarism tool, generally the company has made it clear that it is a similarity detection tool and that the reports that TurnItIn returns are similarity reports, which means it is searching for similar content between Turnitin's database or their repository and the student's paper that is being evaluated at the time. So this may be quotes, citations, references, and more. Similar content does not immediately or automatically mean that the student has plagiarized. So to detect plagiarism, we need human evaluation and analysis. And this is very important and not just something we want to leave up to a software. I always advise lecturers to eyeball the students' work when you receive a report from TurnItIn. Another thing before we begin the demonstration, it's also important to note that TurnItIn does not scan images. So if it is that a student's assignment, their work, their paper has an image and text is on the image, it's not capable of scanning the image. Only text is being analyzed and compared to what is in their database. Okay. So I am using a Moodle demonstration course, which is a course you'll be familiar with by now. It's used whenever we do conduct training sessions just for demonstration purposes. And I'm not going to go through how to get to this course since it's a course I'm demonstrating from. However, as we know, in an effort to make modifications to the course, we have to TurnItIn on. Before I move on, if you do have any questions at any point in time, you can raise your hand and I will refer back to the session just to see whose hand is being raised. Or if you're more comfortable using the chat, you can leave a message there and I will respond once I've checked the chat. Okay. So here I'm in this course. To turn editing on, I would click on the button top right of the course. We know editing is on now because it's asking me if I want to turn it off. All right, the button says turn editing off. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to scroll to the section of my Moodle demonstration course that I want to add the TurnItIn activity to. I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom and click on add an activity or resource. And if you were in any of the trainings that we did within the last 3 to 4 weeks, you would have been versed on the new updates in the new version of UTech Online, and you'd have realized as well, even using the system for yourself, that there are some slight modifications as it relates to the interface and just a presentation of text. So from this list, I'm looking for TurnItIn. To find it easier, I could just click on activities and just scroll down, and here it is. It says TurnItIn assignment 2. So I'm going to click on that. So one click is enough, and I am going to call this test TurnItIn. Okay, so once I've given it a name, so of course you want to intentionally name this specific TurnItIn activity or assignment because you want students to know exactly what it is and what they're required to do. As it relates to what they're required to do, you can put that in the summary. So you can say students are expected or required to submit their assignments here for testing. And if you want to create emphasis on a word, you can always bold. You can use the text editing options to modify your text. And if you want this to be shown on the course page, which is important, you can click the little or tick the little box here to display description on course page. All right, the next field we're going to fill submission type. So we have any submission, we have file upload, text submission. So of course, file upload is when the student has their work probably in a PDF or a Word document and they just want to upload it. For text submission, they can copy and paste from wherever their original work is and place it in TurnItIn's text editor. Any submission type means that you are allowing students to submit either or either. All right, I'm going to select file upload. And then we have number of parts. Now with number of parts, we have 1 to 5 to select from. So let's say you are giving your students a paper to do, but you want your students to submit the paper for testing in sections. So you want them to test the introduction of the paper, separate probably from the body, and you want the conclusion. So that would be 3 parts. All right. However, if it is a case where you just want the students to submit their full assignment, you can select 1 part. Maximum file size, we're not gonna touch this option since it's already default at maximum, which is 100 megabytes. Do you want to allow submission of any file type? We're going to let that stay as no. Do you want the similarity reports to be displayed to the students? This is very important. Default is no. If you don't change it from no to yes, this means that whatever report TurnItIn has generated, they will not be able to see it. All right, so we're going to change this option to yes. And if at any point in time you are setting up an activity or creating a resource in Moodle and you're stuck, you feel as though you don't know what the field requires for you to enter, you can always hover and click on the question mark beside that particular field. All right, so it tells you exactly what that field requires from you. All right, so grade display, we're gonna let that stay as is. Grades as fraction or grades as percentage, gonna let it stay as fraction. Do you want to auto refresh grades or scores? So this is basically asking if it is that you have made changes as it relates to how you're assessing the students' assignment in TurnItIn. Once you have made the change, do you want TurnItIn to automatically refresh? I'm going to let that stay as yes. All right, and another beautiful feature that we have here is that we can set these values as assignment defaults. This basically means that for every TurnItIn assignment that you create, you don't need to have to enter these same options. The system will automatically save them for you and it will be there once you are setting up the activity. So the only thing you might have to do is to change the dates, put in the name and the summary and save. So this is somewhat of a big help. We're gonna go down to grade. Okay, and you can specify how you want the grade type to be displayed. You want it in scale or point. We're gonna let it stay at point, and I'm gonna keep my maximum grade at 100. Grade category, if it is that you have created folders or categories for assessments or activities and resources to be filtered in your grade book, you would have seen them here. So we don't have any grade categories, so we're gonna let this remain uncategorized. There's nothing that we can change there. You can also enter grade to pass. So let's say this is a paper where students need at least a 60% to pass. If you put 60 here, students would be alerted once they're viewing the feedback and the grades if they have passed or if they have failed based on the grade placed in this box. All right, so let's move down to assignment part 1. Why I'm seeing part 1 is because when I was prompted to select the amount of parts I want for the assignment, I only selected 1 part. All right, and of course it can be renamed. So suppose I want to call this individual assignment. All right, when the student is making their submission to part 1, that's the name that they will see. They won't see part 1, they'll see individual assignment. Now I'm gonna enter the start date, and by default the system would use today's day, so the 3rd of February, and I'm gonna set this to, let's say, 10 a.m. So this means that it is open and students are able to submit from this day and time. Good. Due date, So the system sets it to 7 days after the start date. So it's at the 10th of February 2022 and the same time. So I'm going to change this to midnight. And remember that the system uses a 24-hour clock. So 23, let me see if this gives me up to 59 grade. So it's basically midnight, 11:59. And then we have post date. So the post date is basically when you want the system to release or post students' grades and feedback to them. Okay, so even if it is that you have marked their assignment today and you have released you have marked the assignment and given feedback today, if the system is set for post date to be next week, that is when students will actually see their grades and the feedback you have given them. So I'm going to set this to the 15th of February, and then I'm going to put 10 a.m. All right, and remember, if we had multiple parts, we would have these options as well for each part. All right, do we have any questions thus far? Is everything clear so far, or do we have anything that we want to ask before we move on? You can let me know now. You can raise your hand and I'll ask you to take the mic. All right, no problem, Ms. Hutchinson. All right, so I'm seeing no hands raised, no questions. We're gonna continue. Now, let's move down to similarity report options. Here it says, do you want to allow submissions after the due date? Yes or no? I'm gonna select no. No is default. Report generation speed. There are 3 options for how the similarity report can be returned to students. So the first one says that reports can be generated immediately, but students cannot resubmit their assignment. Option 2 says reports can be generated immediately. Students can resubmit up until the due date. However, after their first 3 resubmissions, resubmissions, sorry. So this is basically 4 submissions then. So after 3 resubmissions, reports generate after 24 hours. All right, I hope that's clear. And then the third option says generate reports on due date. Students can resubmit up until the due date. The most widely used option, I think the most flexible option, is generate reports immediately. Students can resubmit until the due date. However, we have to let students know after 4 submissions, the report is going to be generated after 24 hours. All right, and why I'm saying 4 is because this says after 3 resubmission. 1 resubmission would come after the originally submitted assignment. So I'm going to click this option and move on. Now, store student papers. So there are 2 options. No repository means that TurnItIn will not store your student's paper, and standard repository means that the student's report, or sorry, the student's assignment will be stored. Now, this is not the same thing as checking against a stored paper. You store the paper, that means that other assignments being checked and being tested will be checked against that assignment simply because it's in TurnItIn's repository. It's important to note that if it is that you are allowing your students to use TurnItIn to submit a draft piece, that you select no repository, because if it is that they are going to resubmit the same assignment another time for testing in TurnItIn, then it's going to come up as 100% plagiarism against themselves simply because TurnItIn has the assignment in their repository. This morning I was doing some checks on the system just to ensure everything was flowing smoothly as it relates to students being able to upload their assignment, and I took it upon myself to submit an assignment I submitted as part of a program I did at UE, and it came up as 100%. And I'm saying, how is this? Because I did not submit this this assignment in TurnItIn. And then I realized it said the University of the West Indies home campus, and clearly it was submitted by my teacher, by my lecturer. And I tried another assignment and it was 100% similarity, UE. I tried a third assignment, it was the same thing, and I did not upload these. Even my forum discussions, I realized that they uploaded. So just saying this to say that if you select standard repository, it is saved. So this is not an option that you want to use if it is that you are allowing them to use the TurnItIn similarity checker for draft pieces. All right, so I'm going to select standard repository just for purpose of demonstration, and we have the next option here, check against stored students paper. So this is saying that you are allowing your students paper to be checked against what is stored in TurnItIn. All right. Okay, so I'm going to select yes. Do you want to check against the internet? Of course you want to. Do you want to check against journals? These are third-party sources, journals, periodicals, and publications. Yes, we want to. Do you want to exclude the bibliography from being checked? We have no here. So I'm going to allow these to stay. Let them remain no, and I'll show you why soon. So the bibliography, of course, is basically the section with all the references. Quoted material is anything in quotes or anything indented, which basically means that this is not the student's work. So I'm going to let no remain for exclude bibliography. All right, so I don't want to exclude bibliography from being checked. I don't want to exclude quoted material, which means it will be checked. And I'll show you what I'm doing shortly. Exclude small matches. All right, so small matches in TurnItIn, and the best way I can describe it, I always say it's words that occur back to back, one after the other, in the same order. So for example, on multiple students paper, let's say on the cover paper, you might see University of Technology Jamaica, Faculty of Education or Faculty of Engineering and Computing, School of Computing and Information Technology. That's about 15 words I just called. That occurring on multiple students' paper does not suggest necessarily that they have plagiarized. These are just words that they have used on their cover page that they have to use on their cover page. All right. So when we're excluding small matches, it's normally advised that we put 10 to 15 words, 15 words top. I'm not going to enter that as yet because I want to show you how after you have created the assignment shell, how you can use filters to basically tweak the report and to also increase accuracy of the report that TurnItIn actually returns. All right, I think I just heard a little buzz here. Okay, somebody asking for the, okay. All right, so let's
Excuse me,
continue.
Ms. Peck, sorry, Mr. Dean had his hand up, yes.
Oh, somebody has their hand up. Mr. Dean, yes, go ahead, please.
Yes, good day, Ms. Peck and
Good day.
colleagues. The Turnitin cannot be used post assignment. Am I correct?
Could you repeat that, please?
No, the Turnitin has to be used when you're setting the assignment. It cannot be used subsequent to submission.
I don't think I understand your question.
In other words, can you use Turnitin if you did not put in the parameters prior to giving the assignment? In other words, if you have an assignment, can it be checked on Turnitin if you had not done that before? Set it up for it?
Well, so if it is that you don't have Turnitin in your course, remember that we also have, which we will look at shortly, the test Turnitin course. So if it is that you have not personally set up a Turnitin assignment in your course, it's still accessible via the test Turnitin course. But this is what we ask students to use to upload their draft assignments before they make a final submission to their lecturer.
Right. Understood.
All right. Okay. All right, do we have any more questions before we move on?
Ms. Peck, just a comment. So just to piggyback on what Mr. Dean just asked and what you mentioned before. So you said that for your personal study, you did not personally submit the assignments in Turnitin. It was done by the lecturer after the fact. So I think to add to what Mr. Dean is saying, if they didn't ask the students to submit via Turnitin and they wanted to do it themselves, could they set up a Turnitin Dropbox and submit the student papers to get that statistic for themselves, even if they didn't ask the students to do it?
Right, so they're basically testing their students' assignments on behalf of the students just to ensure that there's no plagiarism.
Right. The only challenge with that though is that if, for example, if it comes up higher than the 20%, then you may unless you're going to say to the student that you're going to utilize the Turnitin, it may be difficult to utilize it after the fact without telling them and then penalize them for it. So it may be good just to put it in there to say that you will be utilizing TurnItIn even if they are not utilizing it themselves.
Right. And as you mentioned that, Kamala, another thing I wanted to mention is that the test Turnitin module, which I'll go to shortly, I'll show you how you can locate it and how to advise your students to locate same. The test Turnitin module that we have, it has multiple drop boxes and multiple parts within each drop box for the submission of assignments, but the option is disabled for it to save the students' work. All right, so whatever they submit, it is not saved, but it is checked against already stored work. All right, Miss Davis, you can go ahead and take the mic. Miss Davis?
Yes, okay, thank you. Just want to ask a quick question, Ms. Peck. I just want to clarify, just on the same point that Mrs. Anderson made. You were saying that if you do not want I think you chose one of the options, that if you do not want the information to be stored, you chose a particular option. Can you just, when you chose standard repository, what that one does? I just want to remember, as opposed to no repository.
Good, no problem. All right, so the option here says store student paper. So it's asking if you want to store the student's paper. No repository means it will not be stored in Turnitin's repository or database. Standard repository means yes, it will be stored in their database, and then it will allow persons to check their assignments against this assignment because it is stored. All right, so any assignment stored to Turnitin's database, whatever assignment your student or you upload, it will be checked against that assignment as well. Okay. All right, does that help?
Yes, you were saying something about the 100%, like you were saying maybe to avoid doing it. Yeah, you were giving some explanation. I just want to be clear whether to choose it or not to choose it.
Right. So I was saying if it is that, well, I don't think I mentioned anything about 100%. I was saying probably you're mixing that up with the max marks, but I was saying that if it is that this is not your students' final submission, we're advising that you select the option for them not to store the student's paper, so no repository. If it is a final assignment and you're not requiring for them to re-upload that assignment, you can choose standard repository. And what we generally advise lecturers is to tell students about the test Turnitin option, so they can submit as many times as they want. They tweak their assignments, resubmit before final submission to you. So if it is that you do not want to create a draft Dropbox for them, you can refer them to the test Turnitin module.
Thank you, Ms. Beck.
All right, you're welcome. Okay, good. So where we are now, we are at grade mark options. And here it says you can attach a rubric to this assignment. So I don't think I mentioned earlier, but this is a whole nother training session to itself. So for next week, I will be looking at how you can create or how you can upload a rubric that you already have within Turnitin. This cannot be done in today's session because it will take a while, especially if I'm showing you the rubric creation from scratch, because it's a certain format that has to be observed when you are doing this. We're also going to be looking at in next week's session how you can apply the rubric you have created to mark and assess all of your students' work within Turnitin, having uploaded it just once. And you can have it forever, and you can access it from various courses. All right, so we're not going to select anything here. We're not going to look at the other common module settings, which we find in all activities and resources. Once we have entered the requisite fields, we're going to required fields. We're going to scroll down, click on save and return to course. Good. And the assignment is here. Good. And remember the little summary, the little summary I had put. Sorry, students are expected to submit their assignment here. I ticked the box for it to show on the course page. That's the reason why we're seeing it here. All right, so what I did, just to save us some time, I already went ahead previously and submitted as a student an assignment to the TurnItIn Dropbox, and it is not the one I just created, it's the one above it. So that's the reason why I'm using this one now, just to show you how you can assess and provide feedback to your students. So I'm gonna click on this. And this is an assignment that has multiple parts, and the parts were not renamed, sorry. Hence the reason why we're seeing part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. But when you click in each part, see part 1, it shows me that a dummy student uploaded here. Part 2 shows me that the dummy student also uploaded again. And if there are uploads in part 3, that would be indicated as well. Okay, so let's focus on part 2 because part 1 says 100% similarity. Let's not look at that. Let's look at part 2. This here is showing that it's a table showing that a student shows their first and last name, the title of their submission, their paper ID, date and time they submitted their assignment, the similarity percentage indicated. There's a column for grade and a column for overall grade. So when your students submit their assignments to the submission inbox, it will appear in a table, with the information going down vertically. This is how it will appear. Now, you might be wondering, the color code here is orange. In part 1, we see a color code red. All right, so the color of the report icon, it actually indicates the similarity score of the paper. And this is based on the amount of matching or similar text that was found. So let me just show you an image here. So the percentage range used is 0% to 100%. So in terms of colors, when there is blue, that means that there's no matching text. When there is green, that means that there is 1% to 24% matching text. When there is yellow, that means that there's 25% to 49% matching text. When there's orange, it means that there's 50% to 74% matching text. And when there's red, it means that there's 75 to 100% matching text. For the color here, it actually indicates something. All right, so 58% here. And this is in orange, and I mentioned that 50% indicates, I mentioned, sorry, that orange indicates 50 to 74%, right, matching text. So this is 58%. Now, what do we want to do here? We want to view the student's paper. Why is this bringing up 58%? How can we see the details of TurnItIn's report on this paper? There are 2 ways to do that. We can either click on the 58% here or click on the submission title, and this will open a new window, and it's TurnItIn's document viewer. Okay, so this is one of my forum posts I had handed in a course, I believe, sometime last year. So it's showing me as a student, it's showing me rather as the lecturer, the student's assignment, and we're not seeing any markup just yet because we're just looking at the originally submitted assignment. When the markup comes on is when I click on the similarity index here. So it says 58, I'm gonna click on it, and now I'm seeing fully where the different areas are that I highlighted and the different sources from which TurnItIn is telling me that this information was taken. All right, so before we look at that, the similarity report, there's nothing as it relates to the color code in here that means anything. It's color coded just for transparency and visibility when reading the report. So red here doesn't mean that more similarity is detected in a certain section of your student's assignment, and green doesn't mean it is good. So if you look here, it's just for us and or just a guide to help us. So it's saying that 1, when I click on it, it shows me this was submitted to UTech, and the color code is red. It's red here. Everywhere where 1 is, it is red. 1 red. If I click on 2, this looks a bit pink, right? So it is showing me the different areas. So when I click on, let's go back to 1 in the paper. When I click on 1 and it shows me the text that is blocked here, I can click on the link because it said submitted to UTech. I can click on the link, All right, and it is showing me the exact paper from which whatever was taken from. So if I click on this here, all right, it brings up the different sections. But what I wanted to show you, hold on. All right, Mr. Dean, go ahead.
A couple of related questions. I wanted to find out, when you say submitted to university, you mean submitted to university in TurnItIn?
Right, submitted to UTech, but it's through TurnItIn. So whichever university, once they use TurnItIn, then
Right.
yes, that is how it is being indicated.
Okay. The other question is, what is, well, the color coding does give an idea, but what would be an acceptable percentage for the assignment?
Oh, you had joined late, Mr. Dean?
Yeah, I think I had some issues there.
Okay, so I was showing this document here. So it is a revised test and assessment policy for the university. I'm gonna scroll down to the 10th section here, and it says that lecturers may tolerate a maximum of 20% of non-referenced or unacknowledged work. So a piece of written work found with more than 20% of non-referenced or unacknowledged material should be dealt with in accordance with provisions of Regulation 5, which is something else you can refer to. So I mentioned that earlier. However, I was saying that we don't want to tell students that it's okay for them to receive 20% or less. We want to let them know that as much as possible, originality is important and that they can be penalized for plagiarizing.
Thanks.
You are welcome. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So this is where we are. I was showing you that you were able to click on the link and it would take you to the paper, or if it is an internet source, or if it is a journal or publication or some periodical, it would show you exactly where that snippet of text is taken from. Now, I'm just going to click off this and show you. Number 2 here, it is saying that it comes from Course Hero. However, the student has made a reference here, Isman 2011. So in cases like these, we would want to say that the student, once they have properly sourced whomever work they're using, we would want to say that they have plagiarized. If I scroll down and I show you the reference section, remember that I asked TurnItIn to check the document's reference. So I did not exclude it from being checked. All right, so what I want to show you is that if I click here on the filters and settings option, all of these are disabled. All right, so I have the option of excluding bibliography. I did not do that because I wanted to show you that you can come back here and do it, because when these things are not excluded, naturally similarity detected will be higher. All right, same thing for exclude quotes. In terms of the small matches, that as well was not indicated when we were setting up the assignment, so that was left blank. All right, so what I'm going to do now, and it is the little, what you call this again, I don't remember what this icon is called, but it is the 4th option from the red section here, or the red bar. When you click on it, it brings up filters and settings, and if I click on exclude quotes, exclude references, and click on apply changes, you see it brings it down to 48%, and you realize my references are no longer being checked and it's no longer being highlighted. All right, I think I heard something. Miss Moore, you can take the mic. All right, I'm also seeing the messages regarding the recordings. No problem, they'll be sent to you as well. Miss Moore?
Oh, sorry, I guess I didn't unmute the mic. I was just telling it's Muir. Well,
Muir,
several things.
okay.
You're still not saying it right, but I guess it's okay. Suzanne, yes, I don't know where your screen has gone. Several things. I see somebody put in the chat, there's a recording, so I guess you're sending it to the participants. I guess another
Right, so you
question.
just leave
A
your
side
email
comment
address
is,
there.
why is this at a time where some lecturers are not free? Why is it not at the only free time for lecturers?
All
I'm being
right, so what we
serious.
try to do, we try
Yes.
to keep it at a time where we're able to accommodate most persons. So the last session that we did, one of the last sessions that we did, it was at 3. And persons were complaining to say that 2 would have been a better time. And we decided to have this session at 2. However, and that is what you have been seeing, persons who probably might come late, or persons who might not be able to attend the session may send an email for the recording, or they might leave their email address for the recording. That is not enough for some persons because they want to interact and ask questions. So for those who are able to make it, they do come.
Yeah, I think it should, these kind of things, I think you should have more than one session a week. You guys are supporting all of UTech staff. Anyway, so now to my questions. So, I mean, serious. I think it's really bad that you only have one session. But now to the questions. I don't understand the last
Sure,
thing you
no
just.
problem.
So, in fact, let me go with my. Earlier this semester, I tried to add a Moodle, in Moodle, not on Blackboard, and it won't even allow me to choose it. So I chose the
That's
TurnItIn.
Blackboard Collaborate?
No, on the Moodle. I don't use Blackboard Collaborate. Well,
Okay, I thought you
so
said Blackboard just now.
so
Go ahead.
I said on Moodle. So my first question is, does it work on Moodle?
Yes, TurnItIn works on Moodle. So I just demonstrated adding the TurnItIn activity to Moodle. Yes.
Okay, well, I don't know. In my course right now, and I'm teaching research, I tried adding up one of my assignments with that, and I just, all right. Maybe I can watch a replay since I came in late. I
Okay, well,
have a
just
lot
a
of
quick
things to do.
question.
The second
Just a
thing,
quick question. Okay, go ahead.
yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead with your question.
No, man, what I wanted to know, you said you weren't successful in adding it. Is it that you got an error message, or it just did not show up, or did you not see it as a part of
No, I
the
saw
activity to
TurnItIn,
list?
and then it just wouldn't do anything. So I
Okay.
chose something, I said TurnItIn, and it just did not. I don't
All
even think it was
right.
an error message. It just wouldn't do it.
Okay. All
As in,
right. So I'm just
TurnItIn was
gonna
an
ask
option,
you.
and nothing happened.
You
Yeah.
can try it again if you're having an issue. Would you want to reach out to me via email?
Yeah, I tried it several times, but I can try it again. That was the point.
Right.
Yes,
And then you can just send me an
reach
email
out
to
to
let
you.
me
Can you send
know.
me? Can you put your email in the chat?
Right. I'm about to do that.
Okay. The second thing, can
Mhm.
I get, where's this chat thing? Chat.
All right. So my email address, and for anybody else who needs it, I just left it in the chat.
Copy email address. Okay, I've copied it. So my next question now, I wasn't, two things about what you just said a while ago, I didn't follow. So the first comment was you were remarking that Ishman 2011, I know you just, the question I have with the highlighting is I don't know if that highlight in Turnitin distinguishes whether it is, what is it? Basically, how do we, I'm not sure if it is like, if the person don't, you can actually not use the quote, but it not be too much of a rephrase. I'm not sure what that highlight really means. So
Which of the
what
highlights
does the
are you
highlight mean?
referring to? So
So
this,
both
okay.
before and
So
after. So for example, in the one that you had done before, it was highlighted, but what does it mean? Because I don't know, because I've never used Turnitin either as a student or as a teacher. To what
so
extent it would, for example, let's take out a sentence and you just took the last phrase of the sentence and put it at the beginning. Would Turnitin highlight that as a similarity or not? So I'm
so
saying, what
what
does
it
it
does,
mean?
right? So what it is basically saying, and that is why I started this session. I said that it doesn't automatically observe similarity between a student's paper and what they have in their repository and say, oh, the student has plagiarized. What it does is that it looks at the students' work, the words that flow in the students' work, and test it in their repository for similarity. So for example, what we're seeing here, number one highlighted the words that flow back to back to back. If I click on it here, which is one, same color code, it shows me that these set of words were also submitted in another paper with the same order by a student at the University of Technology, Jamaica. Right. And it's also the same thing for the references. Before I excluded the references, it showed me that this was taken from the internet, just as a reference for this particular material.
Oh, but why would you exclude the? Okay, I see. I don't understand why
Because if you
anybody would
don't,
exclude references. No, but
right,
it's
so if you,
important. If the person is just plagiarizing references, that's wrong. This is just basic. I mean, hear
no
you, but I'm
man,
just like, this is
no man,
basic.
no man, no man,
Sorry,
remember, you
I'm
know,
sorry. This is basic. This is basic. I disagree
remember,
with you. I'm teaching research to people not supposed to be plagiarizing the scholarly references.
right,
In
so remember
my,
that this
in
would,
my, in my, yes.
remember that the references, if it is that it is a part of the report, it can actually make the similarity in index that is detected higher. You understand? So this is something that we might see on the internet many places because it's just a reference for this particular material. When we remove it, it actually lowers the score. So this is not in any way indicating that the student has plagiarized.
But it depends on how similar it is to the text in that.
Right. So what we just saw was the full thing from Isman to 1 and from Zhong to 18. It was the full thing back to back to back.
You're not being clear. If I don't know what you mean by the full thing, and I don't understand what you mean. Are you saying that the text was as it was or similar? I
So the
literally not
text was
understanding your language.
the text was exactly as it was on the internet. So let me just see if I can
You
remove
mean
the option.
not on the internet? You mean in the actual published
Wherever
article?
wherever it
Yeah,
was
in the published
detected, whether
article.
it was a third party, a journal, article,
Okay.
wherever it
Yeah.
was, right? So I'm just
But
going to
that is
remove.
that is the most fundamental part of plagiarism.
Sorry,
If
Miss Peck,
you're
can I just see if I can assist here? I think
Right.
yeah.
Miss Muir, I think what you're mixing up is that when we're talking about excluding references, we're talking about the
Yeah.
reference as it is written, not the reference as in where it's coming from. So in other words, if we didn't exclude references, then the reference here that is written in APA format, which every student who is using this reference would include, then this would come up as,
Oh, that's
yes,
what you
this
mean?
would, that's what she
Oh,
means.
that
That's what
that
I'm
has
saying.
become
That's
oh,
what
that
she
becomes a
means.
whole lot more clear.
Right. So that's why I know
Okay, well,
when we're
Okay.
talking about excluding references, we're talking about
oh, okay.
the reference, the list in the APA
Yes,
For
yes,
format.
the
yes.
paper,
So
right?
that's
Okay.
For
what
the
we're saying. So
That makes
if the
specific
sense now.
student, right,
Thanks for the clarification.
so if the student plagiarized from Isman, as she's showing here, it's still going to come up with the source, but the actual reference as it is listed in the reference list, you need to exclude that. So that does not inflate the statistic.
right.
Okay,
Right.
that makes sense.
And
Thank you.
then, right. And then just another point
Okay.
to add, in terms of another, Turnitin, seminar. There is actually a seminar. You'll be seeing it coming out on the broadcaster. And this is actually from the Turnitin vendor itself. This is February 22 at 11 a.m. And they'll be same thing, similar thing, talking about interpreting similarity reports and using the feedback feature strategically. So they are actually encouraging us as a university to utilize the software more because this is a feature that we are actually paying for and we have been underutilizing it. So if there's any way that you can increase the usage of it in the submission of your
Well,
assignments, we really want
honestly,
to.
I've been willing, but UTech is not. UTech doesn't accommodate. It's years I'm teaching research methods, and I would be willing to go in person before COVID or no. And personally, I've been just personally frustrated. But here, I buck up. So let's see.
No, but what you
Let's
mean by
see.
not? We had about 3 sessions last semester. So what do you mean by not
At
accommodating?
times, at times that clash with. Anyway, you know what? Let's leave it alone right now. At
Okay, so
times
what
that
the
are
thing,
not well, that are not suitable. I'm just
right?
telling you the
We
truth.
all Right, but we always try to have sessions on a Thursday. When we try to mix it up, we find that persons will always have things, because even on a
Yeah, we
Thursday,
won't
persons have
always be able
faculty
to
boards.
accommodate.
Yeah.
So that's
But
why
there's also the
whenever
summer.
sessions,
There's
we do
also the
things in the
summer.
summer. We
Yeah,
do
man, we
things in
do
the summer.
sessions
Yeah.
in the
People are on
summer,
leave. So the point
all
is, any session
semesters.
that we do and you are not able to
Mm-hmm.
attend because of other responsibilities, you can always send us an email and we'll send you the recording.
Okay. Okay, you can go back to your session. We're about to need to go to a
All
staff
right.
meeting, so go back
Okay.
to the
All right.
training.
Thanks for
It's
that.
making more sense now.
All right. Perfect. Thanks for that, Mrs. Anderson. All right, Dr. Williams, just quickly, you tried to add it to your Moodle and got this message, user not found. All right, so I am going to ask, so I'm assuming you tried to add the TurnItIn module, or the TurnItIn activity rather to your module, and you got that error message. All right, so I have to deal with it personally, Dr. Williams, so I'm gonna ask you just to send that to me via email.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Okay. All right, so the next thing that I want us to look at is, okay, let me just click back on these, apply changes, and new report. Okay, so this is where we were. All right, so the next thing that we want to look at is how we can exclude certain sources from the students' paper based on the report that TurnItIn has generated. So in instances where we have seen that students, let's say for instance, this section of the paper, it is properly referenced by the student, but it is still highlighted because similarity is detected. Remember, it's a system that has detected the similarity, and we as well as the lecturers, you have the responsibility of just going through eyeballing the assignment to ensure that the students are being marked fairly, being assessed fairly. There is an option that we can use to exclude certain sections. So let's say I wanted to exclude section 2, the section that is marked as 2. I wanted to exclude that section just to okay, so as we can see here in this case, let's say the student used the proper reference for the snippet of text, or let's say they placed the information or word that is not theirs in quotes, but it still came up and it of course affected the similarity index. We can remove that section from the paper to lower the similarity index. This is not something that the students can do. While they can see this view, right? They don't have the options here to make those types of modifications. All right, so I would click on, so I said I was going to do 2. So the number is here, number is here, sorry, and the color code as well. So I would click on 2, click on the arrow beside 2, all right? And the option below allows for me to exclude sources. Okay, so just a reminder, hope what I'm saying is clear. I've seen where the student has properly referenced the material that is not theirs, and I want to remove it because it has affected the similarity index that TurnItIn has returned. What I can do is to click on exclude sources. Once I've selected that section of the paper, I can click on exclude sources, and I can click here to exclude the sources marked for number 2. So if I click on all of these, and this is 20% of the 48% that was received. So if I click on these, and this is a lot to click on, by the way, but it is also showing other sources that have the same reference here. All right, so if I click on those and I click on exclude, you will realize that that section of the paper is no longer highlighted. It was right here. It's no longer highlighted, and this as well has influenced the match overview or the similarity index that was earlier received. All right, and this can be done to the different areas of the paper where that as well. So say for instance as well, this section of the paper, I've realized that the student has made proper reference to the author or the original author of the words here. I will be able to click on one, select the arrow, and I can eliminate the sources. And of course, that would impact sorry, that would impact the match overview indicated here. Remember that we have the option of excluding quotes, excluding bibliography. You can exclude the small matches as well. Earlier I had said 10 to 15 words. You can't put 10 to 15 words, but you can put 10 or 11, 12, 13, right up to 15. All right. We don't normally, and we have been advised as well not to use percentage for the amount of words because it's not really accurate. All right. So if you want to exclude small matches, you can enter the count as it relates to the number of words that you want to exclude. All right. So I'm going to apply changes. Well, I didn't change anything there a while ago. All right. All right. So what we want to look at next is the Feedback Studio section that allows for us to give feedback to students. All right. So this panel here, it's called the Feedback Studio. All right, so what we just looked at is the similarity index, the filters features, and the exclude sources features. All right, we want to look at how we can actually assess the students, how we can, leave voice comments, how we can leave text comments, and we want to look at the text comments that they already have pre-existing in the system and how we can drag and drop these comments on the student's assignment. So when I hover, the option here says quick marks. All right, and when I click on it, it basically shows me a category called commonly used, and it has all commonly used comments that you can drag and drop on students' work. So let's say I've scrolled down, just for argument's sake. I have seen an improper citation being done by a student. I could simply drag and drop improper citation exactly where I've observed that improper citation. All right. And when students are seeing your feedback, it won't just be improper citation. They'll be able to see as well this snippet of text where it says improperly cited material. Please use the link below to find information as it relates to specific citation styles. It's the same thing. If you have seen a misspelling in the student's assignment, you can drag and drop I think I just saw something a while ago, right? You can drag and drop something that says that asks for them to check the spelling. All right, and they will see the comment here. It says check spelling. You can also create your own comment, but before we do that, I want to show you that we have more categories here. So if you click on the drop down, you will see a category for composition, for format, for paraphrasing, punctuation. So if I click on punctuation, it shows me a list of punctuation errors. So if there's a missing quote, the student was quoting somebody, but the quote is missing, you can drag and drop that as well. Now, how can you, let's say what you want to tell students is clearly not a part of the quick marks. How can you add your own comments? So it's very simple. All right. So let's say as part of the reference list, you're seeing that some references are missing. You can simply click exactly where you want to put your comment, and the conversation bubble, you would click, the conversation bubble, you would click on that, and you can add your comment here. All right, so I would say missing reference. All right, and another thing I want to show you, so I'm just going to click off the white space to show you. Once the student comes here, they'll be able to see the comment. However, you can also convert this to a quick mark. Let's say this is a comment that you think is useful to store because you need to have this comment on other students' paper. You can convert it to a quick mark, which basically means that you will always have access to this comment instead of having to type it. All right. So if I convert to quick mark, it's going to ask me to enter a title. So I'm going to call this reference or missing reference, right? And then I can choose a category that I want this to be placed in. All right, so I can select a category. So for now, I'm going to put it in commonly used. Click on save. And of course, you can see it right here. All right. Okay. Now, the next thing that I want to show you is the option that allows, it says feedback summary, basically allows for you to leave like a general feedback, a summary. So you can leave a feedback either by voice comment or by text comment. Okay, so here it says that it allows you to record up to 3 minutes. You would just simply click on the record button here, click on use your microphone. When you get the prompt, use your microphone, you want to click on allow, and it's currently recording me. I know because the audio meter, it's moving here. Okay, and then I can click on stop. If I'm satisfied with the recording after playing it back, I can click on the diskette to save, or I can click on the delete bin to discard the comment if I'm not satisfied and re-record. So I'm going to click on save. Right, and once the student opens the assignment, they'll be able to play to listen to your voice comment, or you have the option of entering a text comment. Okay, so you can enter your text comment here. And if you need to integrate probably a link that you think would be beneficial to the students, you can also integrate that as well. Okay. All right, the next section here, it should show rubric, not sure why it's not right. So rubric. All right, I see that we have a hand raised. Miss Davis, can you go ahead, please?
Yes, all I was saying is that I was hearing your audio giving the instruction, but I wasn't able to see having a visual. This is just the document in front of us I was able to see. So I would want to see where the cursor is going in terms of the comment and all of those things, where to find it and all of that. That was not showing.
Oh, did anybody else have that experience? It's on the same page with the document, you know, Miss Davis. It's just that I'm to the right panel of the same page.
Okay, I'm not seeing anything. Just the print text I was seeing. I just hear what you're saying.
What are you seeing now? What are you seeing now?
I'm seeing the document. You are scroll down. I'm seeing a reference.
What are you seeing to the right where my cursor is?
Nothing.
Anybody else having that experience? I think you might be
experience, but I didn't use the arrow. You have to use the arrow to go to the right, which I didn't.
Okay, right. And I think you might be zoomed in, probably.
Oh,
Miss Davis.
I'm not seeing anything either at the moment.
No, man. So right now I'm back at the Blackboard Collaborate screen, but I'm just showing you if you're having some issues with the controls, you have the option when you click top left of the screen that you are on now, it shows the controls for the page. So you can zoom in. So if you realize my screen is being zoomed in, you can zoom out, or you can use the best fit option. But I'm not sure, is anybody else not seeing the feedback summary on my screen now?
Or I'm seeing it now.
Just seeing it now. We were not seeing it all along.
Okay. Alrighty.
All right. From time to time, I was having problems. What's I kind of.
Okay. All right. So I'll just quickly go back through that regarding the voice and the text comments. So in the feedback summary panel, once you click on the icon here that says feedback summary, you can leave a voice comment. So what I had shown earlier was that you can click on the record button on the voice comment to record a comment for your students up to 3 minutes. So once I click on it, it starts recording. Before, it had given me a prompt to ask if I want to allow or block my mic. It's not asking me again because I just did it, right? So I'm being recorded now. I was saying that I know I'm being recorded because the audio meter is moving, right? And to stop recording, I would click on the stop button here, and I can listen to my recording by clicking the play button. If I'm satisfied with it, I can click on the save diskette here, or if not, I can delete. All right, so I'm going to click to save, and in the text comment section, I can enter my overall comment to the students about their paper. All right, and I was sharing if you wanted to insert a link, you can click on the link icon and you can paste your link here for students to be able to click on it and view whatever it is that you find beneficial for them to be able to view. All right, where I was speaking about the rubric. And earlier, I had mentioned that in another session, we will be showing you how you can upload or create a rubric and how this rubric can be used to assess the students, and how you can use one single rubric to actually assess all of your students' assignment. All right, so that will not be done in today's session because that will take quite some time. All right, let us now look at, all right, no problem. Let us now look at how we can download, or how we can instruct students to download their assignment or digital receipt or the assignment with Turnitin's markup. So at the bottom of the right panel, we're still on the right panel. At the bottom of the panel, there's a download option, and we have 3 options for download. Current view is a view with Turnitin's markup. It's downloaded as a PDF, by the way. Digital receipts. Digital receipt basically has information. So the student's first and last name, time and date submitted, receipt number, and any other information that is important as it relates to the assignment. And the originally submitted file is the assignment without Turnitin's markup. So students can download, and you as well as the lecturer can download any of the 3 views. All right, and the eye below basically shows what is on the digital receipt. So it shows the submission details. Okay, now earlier I had mentioned that.
Sorry, Miss Speck. My eyes came off the screen a bit. Where was the download button again?
Okay. Right, so the download button, we're still on the right panel, but we're at the bottom. So the down arrow gives 3 options for download. You're seeing that?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so I had mentioned earlier about the test Turnitin module, and I was sharing with you that this is a space that you can direct your students to for them to test their assignments in Turnitin before making a final submission to you. Now, to find that module, I should have extended my session. Right, to find that module, I'm just gonna go back to my dashboard, but anywhere you are in Moodle, if it is not already on your dashboard, you can click on Site Home. Mrs. Anderson, can you remind me, does this course still require, I don't think it doesn't require a key, it's open, right?
Yes, you're correct, no key.
Right, so to search for it, and the system takes some time to load, just bear with me. I'd click on Site Home, and then another screen will come up, which will allow for me to enter the course code or the name of the course. All right, so I'm waiting on that screen. And it allows the students to upload their assignments 35 times, because there are 7 parts. 7 different drop boxes. Each has 5 parts, right? So on the screen, I'm gonna scroll down and in search courses. So I'm already added to the course, so it is here, but just for demo purposes, you'd enter in search courses, you'd enter test Turnitin. I'm just gonna enter Turnitin. The course code though is tin test. All right, but once you enter Turnitin, it will pop up. You click on the course name, and this is what the space looks like. I'm gonna turn editing off so we get a better view. So it tells students you can upload to each part of an assignment only once. If you want to test another document, click on a different part. Once you have done so, upload your assignment, wait for synchronizing to end. So it's basically giving the instructions on how the students can actually upload their assignment. And it also tells them that the acceptable similarity index is 20%, and it also gives further instructions below. So the PDF shows students how to upload and test your paper. There's a video on how they can view the similarity report from Turnitin. Right? There are also APA resources to help. So there's an APA manual here. There are other APA resources at the basics of APA. There's also a citation machine to help with citing for the students. And it also says the newest version of APA, we're at the 7th edition now, and it shows as well the changes from APA 6 to APA 7 that students would need to be aware of. All right, and as I mentioned earlier, there are 7 spaces. This test drop box, we're going to remove it. It was just created earlier for a session for demonstration purposes. So I'm just gonna quickly just go through, just switch my role to student just to show you from the student's view, switch to student. So hopefully it will give me that view. So they would just click on one of the test spaces, right? And then it will show the 5 parts. So it says part 1 to part 5. And what they can do, they can simply click under one of the parts to submit paper. It's a small link, but it exists. And they would enter their paper name here. And they would search for the file on their computer and click on add submission. All right. If it is their first time using TurnItIn within Moodle, they would have to read and accept an agreement. But that is basically it. Once the assignment is successfully uploaded, in a couple of seconds, they'd be able to refresh their screen and they'd be able to see the similarity index and the similarity report. So that is how the test TurnItIn module is. No hitches, no glitches. And remember that the paper is not stored. So they can submit the same paper as many times as they want without having worries of it being stored and 100% detection coming up. All right, so I think that's basically it for today's session. Let's just take some questions now. So if you have a question, Mrs. Booth, this feature for the students to upload before submission is very useful. Thanks for sharing, no problem. You're welcome. All right, I'm seeing 2 hands. All right, Mrs. Maraj, Miss Davis, I don't think you had raised your hand again. It was from the previous one, right? Not sure. All right, Mrs. Maraj, you can go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I just want to ask a question, and I know Ms. Anderson is aware of the situation at the graduate school level. There's a course, there's a module that I'll be facilitating starting March, but it is not on Moodle. In fact, our modules are not on Moodle as yet. I want to find out if that one module alone could be facilitated, and if I could be given special, a little tutorial to have the module on the system, on Moodle, so that we can access TurnItIn.
Mrs. Anderson, you're aware of this module?
I'm not aware of the module, but I'm not clear what you mean, Dr. Sinclair Maraj, about if you need to have the module placed on UTech Online, you can prepare it in this. You can prepare it in the sandbox, and then send the request through your distance learning liaison. That would be Mrs. Sinclair. Her name is Ava Sewell Williamson. You can send that request. You can send the request to her. So once you have a module, any module that is offered on UTech Online can be populated with the TurnItIn. The only other way would be through the native TurnItIn site, and right now that is something that you'd probably have to pay to access. So the easiest way is to create a module on UTech Online, so that we already have that plugin that we pay for, so you would not have to utilize the TurnItIn website.
Okay, it's actually the consultancy project, Mrs. Anderson. We had started a conversation about it last year, but yeah. I'll proceed with your directive. Okay, thanks.
All right. Okay, Miss Davis, you can go ahead.
Yes, Miss Peck. I just wanted a quick reminder. The last thing that you showed with the TurnItIn, I just want you to remind me, where do you go to the one that the students will do their own testing? Where do you go to access that one? Can you please remind me?
Right. No problem. So that's a test TurnItIn module. So it's just the same way in which they would Okay, all right, let me not say that. All right, so if you're searching for a course within UTech Online, you'd use the Site Home option. So wherever you are in Moodle, so you'd see that I just click on the 3 lines top left to bring up the administration panel. You'd click on Site Home. You're seeing that?
Yes, Miss Peck.
Right, so once you click on Site Home, it basically loads a screen with a search field. So in that field, you just type in TurnItIn and the module will appear. You just click to access the module.
Okay, one other question. On the student side, are there sessions for them to have an idea how to do it?
Yes.
Has it been
Right,
held
so
already for this semester?
yeah, man. So we do have sessions from time to time. One was actually held today at 1 o'clock by Mrs. Anderson. So we do have sessions. I'm not sure, Mrs. Anderson, are we having any more of those sessions for this month?
So we usually go in dialogue with the students union based on what they think is needed. And for example, today that session wasn't very well attended, but usually what we do is we send out the recordings and the PowerPoints. But we do have sessions every semester. So last semester I think we had 2. So this semester we may have 1 now and maybe 1 a few weeks from now. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, no problem. Do we have any other questions before we go? So for the session that will look at the creation of the rubric or the grade form, that will be held next week, but we will release as usual the day and the time through the broadcaster. All right, so that will look at how to upload or create a rubric and how the rubric can be attached to the student's assignment, and how you can use that to leave feedback and to give the students their grades. All right, so that is still a part of the feedback studio. Okay, do we have any other questions before we go? All right, so I note the, all right, Miss Davis, I'm seeing your message. I note the email addresses being left here, and the recording will be sent. All right, Mrs. Booz, you can share your email address if you haven't done so already. So thanks to everyone for attending today's session. I hope it was clear, hope it was informative, and I hope that you know, just being aware of this very useful tool, you will utilize it more if you haven't been utilizing it that much, or if you have not been utilizing it, I hope that you'll start to use it and make your students aware of it. And also just a reminder to share with your students about the Test TurnItIn module and how they can access it, and to impress upon your students as well the importance of not plagiarizing. All right, so thanks again to everyone for attending. Take care and goodbye.
Goodbye.